And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Julian Testu, so I'm part of the Golden Gate PM team. And so we're going to talk cloud and we're going to talk multi-cloud for, the next 15 minutes or so. And so what we're going to learn is that Golden Gate basically runs anywhere. And I'm going to start there. Golden Gate runs on all clouds. So we'll see, how it can run on Azure, on Amazon Web Services, on Google Cloud. And obviously, we'll talk about Golden Gate running on the Oracle Cloud as well. So that's the second item you see on the slide here. We're going to talk about OCI Golden Gate, which is our fully managed and cloud native service for Golden Gate on OCI. We'll talk about how Golden Gate can integrate with applications, and a couple of them. I'll talk a little bit about how we integrate with Retail Cloud, Oracle Transportation Management Cloud, and actually you may not even know, or you may know that some applications embed Golden Gate to provide data access. Mostly for reporting offloading type use cases. So that's one item that we'll briefly touch on during this presentation. And then, I was saying Golden Gate runs on any cloud. Golden Gate basically runs anywhere. And, Golden Gate runs on the Oracle Rover Edge infrastructure that you may have heard of. It's like this hardware piece that you see on the right-hand side that you can actually take with you. You have, as part of your company, you have a use case where you need to get data, maybe from an oil drilling platform in the middle of the North Sea, or maybe a mining site somewhere, in Australia, in a very remote area. You can actually take Golden Gate with you. And I think with that, we can safely say that basically Golden Gate can run anywhere. And so we're going to touch on all of this, but really focus on cloud, how to run it on any cloud. So first of all, as I was saying, Golden Gate runs on every single cloud. And, what we've done and how we achieve that is, as Jeff pointed out, and as, you'll hear more from Alex and Volker a little bit later in the presentation, is we've re-architected Golden Gate a few years back, actually a couple of years back now, using a microservices architecture. So, using a kind of like the approach that Jeff talked about for data mesh, but applied to application development with microservices. So which means that Golden Gate is obviously has been ready for years now for the cloud and is ready for you guys, to take it with you to any cloud. So 100% REST enabled, whether you use the user interface or you use the command line, you're basically tapping into those REST APIs. And you can tap into them directly, writing code, automating your Golden Gate processes, doing CI/CD, and all the modern development activities that you wish to do with Golden Gate. So architected for all cloud. Now, from purely a runtime perspective, Golden Gate can run on any compute environment. So it could be an Azure compute instance, an Amazon EC2 instance, can be an OCI compute instance as well. Just make sure that the operating system that the VM is running, or that the compute instance is running, is an operating system that is listed in the certification matrix. And as long as it is, you're basically fully supported, and the SRs, the support requests, if you have any, will just follow the normal, support lifecycle that you guys might be familiar with already. You can also run Golden Gate in containers, and I'll touch more about that in the next slide. It is definitely completely fine to run Golden Gate on Docker containers. You can orchestrate and manage your containers using Kubernetes. And we even provide images that you can build yourselves using scripts that we put on GitHub. So, the link is on the slide. If you want to take it for a spin after, that session, please do so. And then we'll, obviously we'll talk a bit more in greater details about OCI Golden Gate, which is again our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure service that is fully managed by us, by Oracle. And the way we built it is on top of the greatest infrastructure stack in the cloud on OCI, using its file storage services, its complete and secure networking. And you can build, notifications, you can set up alerts, you have a lot of metrics that are emitted by the service. So this is definitely one of the, I would say the best way to run Golden Gate in the cloud. But whether you run it on the Oracle Cloud or any other cloud, be aware that, you can basically implement any of the use cases that you've implemented on-prem for many years in the cloud now, disaster recovery, reporting of flooding, streaming ingestion, pushing data into your lakes, your data lakes, your lake houses. All of that is possible if you run GoldenGate on the cloud. So it's really just running it somewhere else. But for us, it doesn't really make a huge difference. So running GoldenGate on Kubernetes and Docker. So we get a lot of questions about that, and customers that are curious about it, and they also wonder, if I do that, am I going to be supported? And the answer is yes, definitely. You're fully supported. Goes back to the comment that I made earlier. If you run GoldenGate on Docker, just make sure that your Docker container runs an operating system that is supported. If by any chance you have to file an SR, a support request, our support team will definitely assist you and help you, as best as possible. So you're fully supported, and we commit to that. Now, obviously, if you want to run GoldenGate as a service using your own containers, then it's best to use the microservices version. So for various reasons, but now the microservices version has been out there for years. It's available for Oracle, non-Oracle, big data, and for most, I would say, GoldenGate versions, there is a microservices version out there. So, we do recommend, if you want to run it on Docker or any containerized technology, please use the microservices version. Now, what about Kubernetes? So you're using whatever you want as a container, whatever technology, maybe Docker. Now, how do you manage all of it? You are supported if you run GoldenGate on Kubernetes. Whether it is the open source version, the vanilla version, as you see on the slide, or whether you run a more, I would say, enterprise ready version, like the Red Hat implementation, which is OpenShift. So we have active customers worldwide that are running GoldenGate in containers, again using Docker, using OpenShift, using Kubernetes. While I cannot mention names here, at least external names, I can mention some internal names, and you can actually see one on the slide here, like the Oracle Responses team. It's an application made by Oracle, actually runs GoldenGate in using containers. I know on the Fusion Apps side with internal projects where, they are running GoldenGate on Kubernetes. And then our own OCI Golden Gate runs using some Docker containers. So you can see, you're not trailblazers if you do so. You're more than welcome to implement Golden Gate on containers using the technology that you want, and you're going to be supported, and we'll help you, as best as we can. There are some considerations with older versions of Kubernetes that we can touch on, with you guys offline if you want. There were some issues in the past with the swap space, but those have been solved in newer versions of Kubernetes. Okay. So now what we've seen is, Golden Gate runs anywhere, multi-cloud, hybrid, on-prem cloud. You can even take it to, a remote jungle, wherever you want. And it can also integrate with pretty much everything you have in your enterprise ecosystem. So Golden Gate, as you can see, can capture data from relational databases, non-relational environments such as MongoDB, Kafka, Cassandra, and more. You can even integrate with applications through, one of those means. And then it can deliver the data to a variety of subsystems, obviously relational databases like Oracle, but also, our autonomous database on the cloud, like Azure SQL database for Azure customer, Google BigQuery. We can push the data into Snowflake, into Kafka, into Oracle NoSQL, into Redis. So, not only can it run anywhere, but it can basically integrate with anything you may have in your environment. So, you're future-proofing, all of your integration processes using Golden Gate. So now what about Golden Gate on OCI? So on the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, we shipped about 2 years back now our Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Golden Gate, or OCI Golden Gate. What it is it's our first fully managed cloud native service that is powered by the latest versions of Golden Gate. So today we run Golden Gate 21.9 or 21.8 or 9 on most platforms, all microservices versions with OCI Golden Gate. You're getting a cloud native service in the sense that it's fully managed by Oracle. So we do the installations, the configuration, patching is just push of a button. And, a few minutes later, you get a newer version of Golden Gate installed installed on top of, whatever you're running before. So that's, I would say like one of the important benefits of running OCI GoldenGate. Number two is elasticity that we expect from cloud services. So we have auto scaling capabilities up to 3 times the number of OCPUs that you pick when you create your deployments. So let's say you start with 4 CPUs and you say you enable auto scaling, we can go from 4 to 12 OCPUs. If you pick 8 OCPUs as the base, we can go all the way up to 24. And we don't go beyond 24, but with 24 CPUs, you get about 400 gigabytes of memory, 24 gigs of network bandwidth. So you get a very powerful, GoldenGate server to handle, your peak workloads. And we can connect to the most popular databases, not only Oracle, not only on OCI, but also MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres. Now more recently, SQL Server, Snowflake, MongoDB that are going to be there very, very soon. And again, to implement all the use cases that you are familiar with GoldenGate, reporting and floating, disaster recovery, loading your lakehouse, and so on. It's again not just for OCI. We can access on-prem environments with OCI GoldenGate. We can tap into other clouds, and we can go back and forth. You can do bidirectional, you can do broadcasting. Basically anything that you can do with GoldenGate can be done using OCI GoldenGate. So real quick, touching on some of the benefits again of OCI GoldenGate, mostly on the operational side. And what you see on that slide is if you're running GoldenGate by yourself or on any other clouds, basically all activities are yours. It's fully customer managed. You have to procure the hardware, the VM, you have to install it, upgrade it, patch it, monitor it, and then build the processes, right? Which is what's the most important. If you run GoldenGate on the marketplace on OCI, you are basically left with most activities except that we do the installation for you. But if you run OCI GoldenGate, as you can see, you have a lot of green check marks here. We do most activities for you, so you can really focus on what's adding value to the enterprise, which is really connecting to the different sources and targets you have and exchanging data, synchronizing data. And that's what you should focus on. And that's what OCI GoldenGate, helps you with. So I showed you in the previous slide that GoldenGate could pretty much connect to anything. What about OCI GoldenGate? So since the beginning, where we started with mostly Oracle-only connectivity, we've rapidly expanded. And now, we are basically supporting dozens of Oracle sources and targets, but also non-Oracle sources and targets that you see on the slide. I'm not going to go through all of them, obviously, but I will highlight a few. The autonomous databases, Exadata, cloud service, on-prem, in the cloud, cloud@customer. I'm going to highlight things like Azure, Synapse Analytics, again, very soon, SQL Server, Azure SQL Database, Amazon S3, Snowflake, MongoDB, autonomous JSON. So you have really, you can pretty much do anything now with OCI GoldenGate, Kafka, and Confluent Kafka as well, very important. And then, of course, we have more to do, right? We have always new stuff that we want to add to OCI GoldenGate. And then you can see on the right-hand side, some of the targets that are going to show up in the next couple of months. I will just briefly highlight, Google BigQuery that has been highly requested, MySQL HeatWave on AWS, Amazon Redshift, Redis, Single Store, DB2ZOS. And it's just the beginning. There will be, as new sources and targets get added to the core GoldenGate platform, OCI GoldenGate will also support those, basically on day one. And with a lot of added, benefits and optimizations. So some integration patterns. What can you do with OCI GoldenGate? I would say pretty much anything. I'm going to highlight a few. You want to send data from on-prem to the cloud using only OCI GoldenGate. You can definitely do that. Just make sure you set up the OCI networking correctly. Maybe using an IPsec VPN or using Fast Connect to have a dedicated pipe. You can also do on-prem to OCI using an on-prem GoldenGate install. And that actually works. On that side, it's on-prem to OCI, but you could definitely do on-prem to Azure, on-prem to AWS, and you can collocate the OCI region with your AWS region or your Azure region. And with Azure, it's just, we have an interconnect agreement. So it's basically like if OCI GoldenGate was running on Azure, and it's pretty much direct connectivity from on-prem into Azure through OCI. You can do SaaS to OCI. So I was talking about several customers customers are running retail cloud and use OCI Golden Gate for their reporting of loading. So that's important to know. On-prem to on-prem is mostly on the roadmap without sending data to OCI. So I think next time we meet, hopefully in a couple of months, we'll have more to say on that side. So summaries, a key takeaway to wrap up. Hopefully by now, you know, GoldenGate runs anywhere, runs on any cloud, runs on the edge, integrates with SaaS applications, that you have access to OCI GoldenGate as a fully managed cloud native service for GoldenGate, and that you can run GoldenGate yourselves as a service using containers like Docker, Kubernetes, and OpenShift platforms.